is of the 19,000 responses, only 12% are under the age of 34. And that has not changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then another one that really I don't know how to communicate this more with our parents, coaches, and fans, but 59% of officials feel disrespected. And that's a lot.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And I know I say that every intro, but I want you to know I am truly grateful for each and every one of you. And now, if you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you are in the right place. My guest this episode is the CEO of Officially Human, whose mission is to restore respect to sports officials. She also currently serves as the Senior Director of Officiating for the Big Ten Conference. Please welcome to the Elev8 podcast, Brenda Hilton. Brenda, how are you?
I'm very good in the
Good.
Chicagoland area, and it's suddenly getting cold, and we have a storm warning. So here we are.
Yeah, sounds. I've lived in Chicago for a few years. Sounds about right this time of year, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you. They used to joke you can leave your Christmas lights up until St. Patty's Day, so you can
Hmm.
you got a few more weeks of that. Um,
Yeah. well,
well, great to have you. I would love for you to start by just sharing our guests with about how you got into the work you're doing and tell us about Officially Human, but what led you to what you're doing now and tell us everything that you're doing.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to give you the shortened version. It's kind of a cool story, at least I think. Um, Back in 2000, I was serving on a school board, small Lutheran school, and the chair of our school board was the commissioner at the time, Mid-Continent Conference. And we were wrapping up a school board meeting, and I said, I think I'm going to get a job. Our youngest was about to go to preschool, and I needed something to do. And he said, why don't you come talk to me? And I said, I don't even know what you do. And honestly, I didn't even know what a college conference was. Just
Yeah.
wasn't really that into sports. And so I went and talked to him, and I started 2 days a week, 2 hours a day. And part of my job was to work with the sport coordinators and pay the officials and help get schedules and all the stuff that goes around assigning officials. And so I did that for 11 years. And in August of 2011, the Big Ten, the Mid American Conference, and now the Summit League formed a consortium for men's basketball officiating. Um, they called me, they asked me to come work for them. I didn't submit a resume, I didn't interview. They just knew what I did on the basketball side. And so then I went from doing all sports to only men's basketball. And it was there, I was always intrigued by the officiating space and why they all do what they do. How do they get
Yeah.
elevated? How do they get trained? And when I was at the Big Ten, that's when I realized it seems like there's a problem out there with this treatment and retention, and
Mm.
it doesn't really seem like anybody's really doing anything about it. And so I actually got in contact with Positive Coaching Alliance and said, tell me about what you guys do. So we kind of support each other's brands. You're on our website. I think
Yeah.
we're on yours. And you provided me with a lot of insight on the coaching aspect of it. So then in 2019, my job at the Big Ten kind of changed and I wasn't in officiating anymore. And enough people had told me, hey, you can't get out of this space. You're one of our advocates. And so on a Saturday morning, I was bored and I started Officially Human and had no idea what I was going to do with it. But within a week, we were working with a company on a logo. We had the website, we had the social media. And keep in mind, I had no idea about social media. And I still really don't. So we have people to do that for us. But um, so we did a really good survey in 2019 and got 19,000 responses and
Yeah.
worked with a group to break down the data. And they broke it down. And out of that came Elevate Respect. and it's a program that we want organizations to show their parents and their administrators so they kind of know the behind the scenes of the officiating space.
Yeah.
And so we went from there, and it went live May of 21. And just from then, we've grown. And now we're on the NCAA's portal, the NCAA's website. We are partners with the state of Illinois, and we have 8 college conferences that are partners with us. And then we have a handful of club teams. And we just, all we're trying to do is the same thing that positive coaching is trying to do, just spread some love amongst everybody.
And I think, one of the first met Brenda, we actually at an event in Utah, I think at the Delta Center. And one of the things that I, somewhere over in that corner of my office, I know it's still sitting there in that pile of papers. But the survey data, I remember you sharing that day, because, I think, yeah, you were not anticipating the volume of response, which I think was, I remember you talking about a big signal of, holy cow, there's a lot of interest in this. And then, like you said, you had to go find some people to deal with that volume and make some credible information out of all the voluminous feedback you got. Can you talk just a little bit about that, kind of the surprise of that process, and then kind of like what you did? And then I think, you probably can rattle it off. I'll link it up here. I know you have that on your website, I believe, some of the cool infographic on some of that, but share with some of those big findings that kind of rocked your world a little bit with those 19,000 responses.
Sure. So I want to be clear. We had no idea that we were going to get 19,000 responses, and 15 state high school associations sent it out. And I remember sitting at my computer, just watching SurveyMonkey go up and up and up. And you're going, wait, what? Yeah, it was crazy.
Broken?
Right. Who are all these people? The other cool thing about that survey is we gave anybody that did the survey, it was anonymous. However, if they wanted to sign up to help fix the problem and be part of the solution, they could do that. From that, we got 7,000 email addresses. Had no idea, again, we didn't even know how we were going to fix the problem. So we did a couple other surveys or thoughts, asked them for thoughts on what would you do if you were us? So that was really fun. I'll say the number one stat that I love to throw out there is, of the 19,000 responses, only 12% are under the age of 34. And that has not changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then another one that really, I don't know how to communicate this more with our parents, coaches, and fans, but 59% of officials feel disrespected. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
That is a lot of numbers. The other thing I tell people when I'm talking to groups is, summertime or wintertime, depending on your sport, is kind of recruitment time. And we all know about the camps and clinics that happen across the country. For every 100 new officials that start in the summer of 2024, only 20 to 30 of them will be left in 2 to 3 years. And that stat alone should tell all of us, we got to take a step back from this. We have to put ourselves in their shoes.
Do you find, I think just in the, obviously we see the data and we all, I think, experience it on many levels of, being courtside and hearing and seeing and observing what goes on from the college level to high school, into the youth level, on how we treat officials. Probably getting on my old man soapbox here, but it feels like when I was younger, they were just part of the game. Just they got less attention for good, bad. Most of the time it was, but it was just, they just were there. They facilitated that. And yeah, some good, some bad. You heard some boos, but it just became over the last, decade, 2 decades, just this build up, it seems. And then where a lot of the partners and people that we work with too, with Positive Coaching Alliance, as you see, it was just, the events that happened just became more extreme, and where it
Mhm.
became, not just beyond these boos and loud comments to, physical aggression and events that transpire. And kids, sadly, are usually the witness of these. And it disrupts usually what we're trying to do for student athletes. Uh, what are some of the biggest contributing factors or things that you hear from the conferences and the people that you work with, um, that contribute to maybe
Mhm.
the behavior and where it stems from?
Well, I'm going to first go back to 2020. We did a series of 20 podcasts,
Mm,
and on five or six of those, I said, we all better be ready when we come out of COVID because it's going to be worse.
hmm
And that has proven to be true. Now, we can all speculate what those reasons are. And I personally believe that one of those contributing factors is the fact that parents are they're still raw about their children missing seasons of competition. And, people say it all the time. Everybody thinks their kid's going to play in college. And for that alone, it it makes me really, really sad that this is the place we are in society, that we blame the officials for something that they had zero control over.
sure.
And then you throw in social media and you throw in phones. If somebody wants to do a PSA on put down your phone and be part of the solution, I think that would help, because we all see the videos. And one of the things that we like to do at Officially Human is put out positive stories. Don't give this negativity all that attention.
Yeah,
And I think if we could all work together to do a little bit more of that, that maybe could help. Then we've got the media factor where, um, we're sitting at home and we're watching officiating when we're watching a basketball game, and the announcers are ripping on the officials. And in our survey, officials said that 80% of the fans don't know the rules. So, when you're watching basketball or you're watching football or any other sport, and the difference we do between a judgment call and a rule is very big.
yeah,
And no two people at any competition have the same view. So when we talk about all these problems and how this happens, it's all these factors put together,
sure.
and they just amplify everything.
Yeah. I think was recently at a high school playoff basketball game, and there was that, one of those dads, not many rows behind me, but just spent the most of the time every whistle directing his voice towards what the problem was that the crew had going on. And clearly a couple of times I just wanted to be like, it's not the NBA or college rule. This is high school. Like
Mhm.
I don't think you're wrong, but this is like, that's not how they're going to interpret this. Like, how many high
Right.
school I feel like you've been at more high school games than I have this year, Dad. But and it was just, I guess to me, I was like, I wanted him eventually. I wanted to just kind of be like, man, I bet your son would love to hear your voice cheering for him,
Right.
because he had a
Right.
loud voice. And I think that's what always kind of tears at my heart sometimes, is that just so much energy was directed to this crew that is going to disappear out of the life for the day. And he didn't give any of that energy to actually encouraging his son.
Well, and I think the other thing that we talked about a lot as we came out of COVID was when when families are going to games. So, one parent may be pushing that child to get back on the court or field, and the other parent is still very afraid of COVID. And who are they going to take their frustrations out on? It's going to be the official. I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. They're going to take
Mm,
their anger or their angst out on the official. It's the easiest person to do it to.
yeah. I think there's a lot of yeah, adults bring their own life issues, unfortunately, to the sidelines. Um,
Yeah.
and I think, eh, it's still even, I think, and you see it probably a lot in your experience with the college conferences, is that, yeah, it kind of, I feel a lot for college athletes, especially today's age, because they're kind of caught in the crosshairs between the entertainment world that pro sports is, and they're still developing young people that are largely still contributing, a lot of them, to paying to play in college sports. They're not all on full rides, especially when we get beyond Division One, and so many
Yeah.
other sports that we know are not all or none full rides, even at the Division One level, that they're still developing. And I think those crowds get bigger, those crowds get rowdier. There's more alcohol in the college environment for everyone to have to handle. But what are some of the things that you see that just kind of add to those challenge in that college environment? Um,
Money,
Money.
money. Yeah, the bigger the stage, and I'll tell you two stories that from my own personal experience of working with officials. This is dating me way back when. We were at a basketball tournament, and one of our officials had lost his wife to breast cancer in December, and so he came back in February to work so he could work the conference tournament. And what a lot of people don't realize is officiating really is therapy, and that community of people is your support system. And so we obviously he was one of our top officials, and he called a foul on somebody, and player went to the line, and it's quiet because it's one of the opening rounds of the tournament. And somebody in the stand says, "Hey, Mike, why don't you go home and think about your wife?" And the fan was thrown out, but the words were still said, and they still sit there.
Yeah.
They just sit there. And then and this kind of stuff happens at the youth and the high school level, especially if it's a lot of local, officials that are coming over and over, and people get to know their names, and which is
Yeah.
awful. Um, and then another experience was the halftime of a basketball game. The crew is going off the court, and a fan spit on one of the officials. And so, what is your natural reaction? Is to go after that person. So now you have a crew and you have security trying to get everybody in the locker room. You've got security in the stands getting this person kicked out. But does anybody think about those three officials that just went to the locker room that now probably have 5 minutes less to regroup, to talk about the first half and get back and call a perfect game? They don't. They don't. So, I mean, it's very sad, the state that we are in, and everybody feels like they can yell and scream and be downright nasty
Mm.
to these officials. And I'll even say, from your guys' perspective, these coaches. And I think I heard that there's a shortage of coaches at the youth level. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think also kind of post-COVID, I think, some of that, multitude of factors you mentioned too before, but I think there's a lot of organizations that have more kids. They're searching for coaches at a variety of sports,
Mm-hmm.
especially at the young level, and getting the volunteer parent to be willing to step into that arena. A lot of times for the same fear that the officials don't want to deal with that
Right.
arena, or those Saturdays or weekend environments. It's become a challenge. And then again, it starts to impact kids and their access and opportunities to sport and competition and all the great things we want it to be about, um, in that
Yeah.
development.
And I
Um,
think the other thing that's really unfortunate, and to your point, you've said it a couple of times, that who is this really about? Everything that you and I do, who is it about? It's supposed to be about the kids
mhm.
and fostering them positive environments, and allowing them to grow and see that they can make mistakes, and they can move past that. If you're yelling and screaming at a coach or an official, to your point earlier, you're doing nothing for your child.
Yeah. I think they would love to hear, yeah, that support. And I think there's always, and I think you would know, you're spending so much time with officials is, I think there's some old surveying I used to share, about why officials got into it anyway. And then you looked at why a volunteer coach would get it. And there's a lot of overlap, right? They want to be supportive in their community. They know the support. They like to steward the game. they want to give back. There's a lot of this crossover, but there's just a role that they wanted to get in.
Right.
Um,
Nobody's forcing them to become coaches or okay, maybe a spouse is forcing you to coach, but yeah, our data said that 70% of the officials officiate for the love of the game.
yeah, and I think that's so, that they're just a part of it, and it's hard to think you're the most vilified. Um, and one of the things I wanted to ask you too on the positive, I'm focusing on those positive stories because I think um, some, even in some, especially at the college level, even you observed at the high school level and youth level, some, intense hostile environments. Some officials have, and I think it's due to training, experience, and a lot of factors, but what are some things that you see that contribute to an official being able to steward and create and maintain an atmosphere? Obviously there's variables that are within and without their control, but within their control, what are the things that you see officials do well to create an environment of what we want versus what we don't?
So over the years, what I learned to do, I don't look for right, rule calling. I don't look for any of that. I look at game management.
Yeah,
So if an official, some of the best officials out there, some of them aren't the best at rules knowledge, but they can manage a game. So if you can manage players and coaches, and then even some of the fans, you build a rapport with them. That's how you that's how you turn the environment around.
yeah,
It's in my view, it's all game management. How do you handle the game? Because we've all seen the games where you might see an official that is just not going to hear it, and probably that official never hears it. So then they create this bad reputation for everybody else. Are there some bad officials out there? Yes. Are there some people that should not be officiating? Yes. However, I would say 99% of them that are, they know how to communicate with
yeah,
each other, with their partners, and with everybody else that's around the area of the court or field.
yeah. I think that's that emotional management. And
Yeah.
I think from my work with athletes, I always say, if you are able to keep your emotions in check and communicate with the official, they're usually going to provide some information that might be advantageous to you. Even if
Yeah.
it's, something. That was my experience as a college athlete, as a safety. I wanted to, be on that back judge's good side. I'd introduce myself before the game and maybe save me a pass interference or two. I don't know. But I know plenty of times they would come up and just tell me, hey, tell your teammate we're looking for this or be careful of that, and so it's just, helpful information. Um,
Yeah. I would say 100% of officials do not want to determine the outcome of the game.
no,
99% do not want to make that under 2 minute call that changes the game for somebody. They're, again, very high percentage of them, that is not their goal. And if that is their goal, they won't be on that quarter field for very many years because it does
yeah,
catch up to them.
yeah. Um, we were talking before we got started here of the some of the growth that you're seeing. Um, I wanted to dive into some of that process of that, and kind of especially when it's something new. I think the survey response was great. We see this overwhelming issue, and then the data supports this this kind of thinking. What are some areas that you find you still see resistance um,
I,
i-
I
in trying
I
to
see
attack this problem?
resistance. I see resistance in areas where they recognize the problem. They know the problem needs to be fixed, but they're not going to put any resources, time, or energy into it. They just want to say, oh, yeah, we know it's a problem. And when the NCAA approached us to have Elevate Respect on their platform, we thought that that was such a great message to all the collegiate athletes and coaches and everybody out there that, hey, we're providing you with tools to help manage this problem. And if we work together on this, we can make a difference, but we're not going to see it overnight. So that's where, when I've learned it takes 12 to 18 months to foster a relationship with a potential new client, no matter what, because you have to first let them know that you're genuine and
Yeah.
you really are you're not a money grab, you're trying to solve a problem. And then work with them, let them watch our social media, let them see some of our PSAs. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, they are real. And we do want to be part of the problem. And then honestly, Tyler, there's been a few clients that have reached out and said, we want to partner with you, and I don't have to do anything. But on average, it's 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. No, it makes sense for sure. I think that's, I mean, I just think sports has always been something that's, very relational. And I think, and we're trying to change things in sports, you're going to have to build trust. And I think, right, that's
Hmm.
what it's I think a thing we need to try to bring to all roles in sports, and elevating it from coach to official to coach to kid to parent in every which way we can. But yeah, it takes time to shift the culture, and the issues that we got here didn't come show up overnight either.
No.
Um,
And one of our partners, I was doing a presentation, and I always say, and I don't know why this hasn't caught on yet, but I'm waiting. Okay. I always say, if you're out there spending money, resources, time on recruiting officials and you're not doing the same for treatment and retention, you're just you're just throwing away money. You have to do both. We go hand in hand. I'm not a recruiter, I'm not a trainer. I am a retention and treatment person. And that is starting to take off. That's starting to get noticed a lot more. But one of our clients said, I heard you say that, and the light bulb finally went off.
yeah.
And I said, Kurt, I've said that for 5 years now. No, just kidding.
No, and I think, yeah, but I think the challenge and the complaint you hear is we need to find more officials, but then, yeah, that's what gets, you know, the attention doesn't get paid to it. What are some things, well, in a youth or high school, those environments, people listening or athletic directors that, they can do to help, improve that retention?
So we just really got our activation, um, we figured it out. It took us a while, but we figured it out. And one of the things that we think is really, really helpful is to go to a site, a tournament, and have a booth there and engage with the parents, the coaches, the fans, and have a banner that they sign. We will be positive, or we will treat the officials with respect. And then you show the officials that somebody is working on their behalf. And we've done 4 or 5 of them now, and we've got some Division I conferences that are doing some activations
Cool.
at their basketball tournaments. And one of them is doing, they did it at their volleyball tournament, but they did honorary officials. So they pulled kids from the crowd, they gave them t-shirts, they had them go to the officials meeting, they handed the ball, all that. And maybe one of those kids' parents is one of those fans in the stands, and we connected with them.
Yeah.
And I just think that we have to be more interactive with the audience. And you have some visuals. We have a PSA, we have a PA read that can be read. And I always joke with people about, if you were at a basketball tournament and the sportsmanship PA read is at like 18 minutes on the clock, like nobody's even in their seats.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So we need to change when that right before tip.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you were talking about earlier, though, time is money at those tournaments.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. I mean, even though, I mean, the high school game I was at the other night when they were doing the read, there was like the parents were, none of the high school kids were even in the gym yet to support
Right.
their friends. So it's like, I was like, yeah, I was like, is this the practice read for the later one, or is this okay? But, before the tip, but, no, I think, and I think sometimes people think that, and we've worked with organizations with positive coaching alliance, I think that's sometimes a silly thing, or will that really help? And but it's like, what are you doing anyway. Like, and you know, so most of the time it's nothing. So comparative to nothing, let's start doing something. And that's
Well,
just
and
one of the many things you can do.
right. And the other thing I tell people is if you put a sign up that says you are entering a officially human certified field, and we believe in the positive treatment of everybody. Don't leave it in the same spot all season. Move it around. So
Mhm.
then people will see it. And once a quarter, send out, a PSA or we can do PCA, we can do officially human because everybody has to hear it multiple times. What is it? You have to hear something 7 times before, you retain it.
Yeah,
Well, clearly we need to do it 700 times with a lot of these fans.
for sure, for sure. As we wrap up, wanted to direct people to the Elevating Respect. Where can people best find your stuff if they want to learn more about Officially Human and all that you have to offer in your work? Where's the best place for them to go, Brenda?
Officiallyhuman.com, and then follow us on Twitter and Instagram at offyhuman, OFFY human.